Eureka!
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 Record. You have the mic. Thank you so much.
So thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here, and I've researched in the past few days what are urban interventions. If design thinking is a method to work on that, and I really found some really interesting things. So maybe I'll share some of that at the end. But of course, I'm also looking forward to your ideas and where you are so far. So during the presentation, I'm gonna ask you also to come up with some input just to calibrate and see how you can apply it. So I'm a management consultant and a facilitator in Timișoara. I work mostly outside of Timișoara. I now have only one client here, and I'm happy about it. I'm happy that I have this one client actually. And usually I work with managers and with project leaders to develop teams. And also I've been working for the past 5-6 years now, also in design thinking projects and other innovation methodologies. But I think design thinking is my favorite one because it combines the psychology background that I also have with innovation and creativity. So that's why I'm part of this cluster in Timișoara on design thinking. Maybe just one other question for you. And I prepared just one Menti slide. When you think about where you are in your project, and Andrea has told me that you are already had some iterations, some brainstormings on the project, and I'm curious where you are at the moment and what would you like to get out of this webinar in terms of real practical things or anything that would make your project move forward, progress in any way. And if you can pick up your phone and maybe scan this QR code or just go to menti.com and enter the code that you see on the screen. So if you imagine that this webinar will give you some answers and even more, what would you like to get out of it? What are your best hopes from this? And you can submit multiple answers, so it's fine if you write a few ideas, a few questions separately. Or if there's one urgent question that you have about design thinking.
No, it doesn't work.
Did you scan the QR code or the link?
Yeah, the QR code doesn't work. Maybe because
No, the best is to connect to menti.com because of the screen, it does not work. And then put just a code and it works.
Okay.
Oh, that's you, Integrated Consulting Group.
Yes.
Ah,
Integrated Consulting Group is the company that I work with on design thinking topics and other leadership programs.
haha. Why do I have to fill all this bullshit in? Sorry,
You didn't get there to the.
but it has all these questions, and if you don't fill words in, you can't go further.
Looks like fun is an important part of it.
Ah. Oh, now I'm getting it. I'm sorry.
Did you create an account or where were you?
I thought these were things to get in, not your questions. I thought stupid of me.
Okay.
That's how you can see I'm an old person.
Sharing the work, one aha moment, knowledge, implementation tips. Sharing from your work, learn about framework. Okay, design tool. Good. Looks like I prepared something that will be useful for you. So I'm going to share with you the framework that we use in design thinking, the steps that they describe, and also some tools that you can apply for each step. And we will focus more on the last part, so the prototyping and the testing of prototypes. And I have also a few videos with some examples that you can see. Even though we are not in real life, you can also somehow experience it, at least visually, more than a lecture. Okay, good, thank you. I think that's everybody. So I'm gonna share a presentation, but from time to time I will switch it to our conversation and invite you to speak up or send you in some breakout rooms. But at any time, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them. And I also encourage you to unmute yourself. If there's not a very loud noise around, it's fine that you just stay unmuted so that you can speak freely and not have to press a button to speak, just like if we were in a classroom. So let's see if this works. Can you see the slideshow? Okay. So as I said, I'm part of ICG, and ICG Consulting, Integrated Consulting Group is a company that focuses on change management and innovation as part of what is going on in the world. And design thinking is one important tool that we use. It's a human-centered innovation tool or methodology. You will see further on that it's more than a tool and more than methodology. What it actually does, or how we define it, how we define it is an approach. It's a human-centered and collaborative approach, and it solves complex problems, or as we also say, wicked problems. Do you have any idea what are complex or wicked problems? And what's the difference maybe from regular problems? Any ideas? What are complex problems?
What you're asking what a complex problem is?
Yeah.
Well, if it wasn't, it was already solved if it wasn't complex. That's what I always say.
Okay.
And if you look in urban situations, there's a lot of things in cities that are persistent problems that stay and stay, and we kind of solve little bits, but we never get to the depth of it.
And the kind of problems when you act and move an element of the system, so the reality of the whole system moves, and you need to be aware of that, the impact that you're making or you could make.
Okay, true. I saw also a raised hand from Samita.
Yeah, I would guess that there are many stakeholders involved, and they may not agree easily on solutions to those problems. So they will need more discussion and give and take before it reaches, and maybe we may end up by a solution which is not agreed 100%, but with majority. I would guess.
Yeah, that's pretty good. If we sum it up, it's problems that haven't been solved yet, and they don't have one simple or one unique solution. We need to involve many stakeholders, many fields of interest to progress with it. And usually it's a complex problem to solve, like incremental. Can you hear me? I think my internet is unstable.
Yeah, we lost you for a bit. Now we hear you again.
Okay, I switched to my hotspot, but it's I hope it's okay. So to sum it up, the complex problems are problems that haven't been solved, and that they probably won't get solved by one solution. But actually, what we can do is incremental improvements and small solutions that help us make some progress. Okay. And design thinking as a process is helping us with these kind of complex problems because it gives us a framework and some steps that we can go through, as well as tools for each step. And if you Google design thinking, or if you have been to other courses or read about it, you will see that different companies use different kind of process. So in ICG, we use these 6 steps. I think Google uses 4, but there are also design thinking processes with 9 steps. So there are a few things that are really important. So for example, empathize is one process step that is part of any kind of design thinking process. It's a mandatory step. And also prototyping is mandatory. Other than that, things can be switched around, added, or so for example, the 9-step process has some of these process steps split into more, so that you can go through them individually. So we use these 6 steps. We start with understanding. We use here a briefing, the briefing information, like in advertising, where we try to find out, okay, what are we looking for? What do we know so far about the problem? What do we know so far about the stakeholders, and so on? And then we start the empathizing, which is the biggest part of this of the beginning of design thinking. You can see behind the process steps also some the diamonds. It describes actually where we need also divergent thinking, but also how much information we need there. So in empathizing and in prototyping, we need the most information. In empathizing, we go and we talk and we observe and we make some experiments so that we understand more and get into the feelings of our users. And then we try to redefine and reframe what is the actual challenge. Because when we start, we have our own frame of reference, our own research that we based our thinking. And maybe when we go into the field work and we talk to actual beneficiaries or the users of our projects, then we can really find out what are the challenges. Then, so for defining...
Can we ask questions, Alexandra?
Yes, please go on.
How do you call it, old school research?
Mm-hmm.
In this phase, you also did a lot of desk research. Is that part of empathizing also?
We actually do that in understand. So in the first step, we have a desk research that is called empathy map. And it can be done in empathizing, but we also do it in understand. So we create the persona and we create an empathy map where we try to imagine where the people are going, what they're thinking, what they're doing, what they're saying, hearing, and so on. But actually the desk work is not real empathizing. Empathizing is when you go and you can touch and feel the real users. Yeah, so I'd recommend the desk work before starting to empathize. Then ideation is also something that you do in the office, or it's also desk work where people generate ideas and they create something together. But then when we start prototyping, it's really important to again go outside, meet the people that we are designing for, and see if we are on the right path or we have to go back. So these fine lines that you see on the process above and below it, actually they want to say a story about the iteration, that you don't go through these steps one by one, but actually you have to go back sometimes when you create a prototype and you go and test it with your users and you see that it's not working or it's not what they wanted. You may have to go back and empathize some more or redefine the challenge that you were working on so that you can create better ideas and better prototypes that you can discuss then with the users. So in prototyping as well, I would say it's a field work. It's something you do with the user in front of you. And of course, testing, always testing the prototypes with the users or with the beneficiaries. Because Sharona is also always mentioning the old mindset. I just wanted to make this difference between how we traditionally work in projects. We plan a lot, we make a lot of flawless planning. We try to think in advance about everything that could go wrong, whereas in design thinking, we are going for trial and error. Also, when in traditional thinking, avoiding error, and design thinking, it's the opposite. We try to fail fast. This is one really important principle in design thinking. So don't overthink it. Just go outside, test it out, see what happens, and integrate the feedback that you get. You always learn a lot from the users, and a lot of ideas come from the field work. Rigorous testing is really important. Experiments that are not so expensive, and also they don't take so long. So instead of presentations and rigorous analysis, also deep customer immersion. We want to really talk with our users and see how they interact with our projects, how they feel about it. Even if we might have some projects that are really useful for people, but they don't look cool, and maybe the users will not use it just because it doesn't look cool, or doesn't make them feel like young people or something like that, and then you have to redesign it and integrate the practical features of your project so that it makes people also feel good about it. And design thinking is about doing. We have also another principle that we use where we say that the only way to do it is to do it. So in design thinking, we actually do a lot of things, and we have a lot of artifacts at the end of the project. So some ideas on understand, and then I'm going to invite you to a short exercise. As I said, design thinking works for different kind of challenges. We also use it for well-defined challenges or ill-defined challenges. Usually I work with organizations, and what they start using design thinking for is for internal processes where the customer is an internal customer or an employee or the management, and then they have some ideas, they have some feedback, what they should improve, but they don't really know what the solution could be. But
For
also,
who is it a customer?
Can you say that again, please?
For who is it, your customer, or is it the customer of that team?
The customer of the project team.
Okay.
So, for example, we had in the last 3 years a lot of projects on onboarding people that are working from home, because this is a really challenging process nowadays. So post-pandemic, people are not coming to the office anymore, and now they have this challenge to onboard them and create a cohesion between the team members. And we worked a lot with the internal customer, which are the new employees. So employees in their first 3-6 months that have never met their colleagues face to face, have never seen the whole team together and stuff like that. So they have to really empathize with what is going on with the teams. Where is this going? Where is this remote work taking us? Of course, we did remote work before pandemic, but it's at a whole new level now, and it became a wicked challenge now. So this is one example of internal customer, the new employees. I was looking at the chat. I don't know who Kay is, but if you can say more about what is the ethnographic, since it's existence, the logic of ethnographic, what do you mean? Okay, so in a nutshell, we can use design thinking for saving the planet or to improving small details. So this is what I'm also inviting you to think about your projects. What are you already doing? If there's some new solution that you need or some new direction, or is it just for improving some details of the solutions that you have? This is the briefing info that I told you about. That is actually, I think, is it? It's coming from advertisement, and we are also using it in design thinking to understand who is the target group, why do we need a new solution, what do we want to achieve, how visionary can we be, or how much budget are we allowed to spend, what are the solutions that already exist and what is wrong with them, what are some restrictions, and who are the stakeholders that we have to involve in the process.
This looks very similar to the research part of the living labs that all the groups have been through, and we have a similar one-pager that summarizes everything. I think we've left, but that's a different step. Also within the design thinking, we've left quite a big chunk in the living lab. The important part is formulating the challenge. What is the challenge you want to address? So it's not so much a project at first, but it's yeah, a challenge. That the challenging part about talking about the challenge is that considering the brief you just presented, needs to also be something, you know, realistically addressable, you know, not things like improving the quality of life of the residents. That's like way too broad, way too complex. You know, you need, that's a lifetime objective. But there's great parallel between design thinking as a process and also the living lab, and we've been making references towards design thinking. So this is why your framework is very much needed. And
I was also wondering, Andrea, what is the difference between participatory action research? Because that's what I'm teaching, and it looks so much the same. I'm like, what is different? It has different words, of course, but
yeah, it's I think it's also in the mindset what Alexandra was pinpointing about how much is it on pay, what does the outcome serve you, or the artifacts, right, of the implementation, what do they serve you for at the end? And to me, but I haven't worked directly with action research before, to me that still has a very academic role, right? And then design thinking also, I feel design thinking contributes to also things like developing a service or developing a new product, while the urban living lab is more about, so you don't do urban living lab without engaging stakeholders hands-on and without having them also be part of the prototypes, you know. And
but that's actually the kenmerk, how do you say that, the explicit difference between normal research is actually that as a researcher you're part of it.
Yeah,
you step into it. Yeah,
but it still has some sort of academic role, right? Whereas, so with design thinking, you can develop a service or a product, you're still owner of that solution. Whereas in the urban living lab, it should be the stakeholders that stay with that, you know, whatever prototype or follow-up of that prototype. So that's
so as a researcher, or as the person who's doing it, you should also take a lot of consideration about the sustainability of your approach.
Yeah, and it's not your approach. In the living lab is more a collective approach. You're there to kind of like start a fire, but the ownership should be within the stakeholders. So it should be a collective. But of course, as an urban living lab, let's say initiator, which we are as urban innovators and everyone in the project, you have design thinking as a tool. And maybe some of the findings of the urban living lab can turn into a product or a service or...
But don't you think, Andrea, we should always design the process?
That's an approach. But again, that's, I mean, just having urban living lab as a framework, you can say we have designed the process, but it is top down. There are approaches which are very open and very free. But as you see, we have, I think also as, you know, society and human need of frameworks and, you know, structures to feel comfortable. We need...
And then you call a process a structure, huh?
Yeah. I mean,
because what I'm looking at it is more to see that you as a person doing something, that you design what actually you think about really strategically about what you're doing. You sometimes you do things spontaneously, and sometimes but you also see that it's apart from the content. What I always see is that content and process are totally too much entwined, and then you don't really see your role very clear anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that the being as having that role as urban innovator, that you have to have qualities, certain qualities, to be able to do that in a good way. And that is one is seeing process and content and strategizing and designing and doing things spontaneously and doing things organized, and the whole.
Yeah. I think there are many ways to do it. As Alexandra was saying, as long as the empathic exercise is there at every step. And I also feel that it's fine any way to do it when you realize and you accept your biases and that you've interfered. You don't present it as a bottom up when it's not, when you have directed, the feeling for, and you call it what it is. And I think that is the most important. We don't clinch on the buzzwords for the, buzz of it. And we say, okay, maybe we could have been more co-creative or more open, but we decided not to. And this was our approach. And to me, that is also fine, because there are so many ways to do it. And as Alexandra was stressing on, it's more about the action. You learn more by doing it and experimenting and failing than just staying in our heads. And I think this is where action research comes as well, is realizing that there's only so much research you can do on your own and in your office, on your desk, and that you need to have everyone on board to create that.
But I think it's also important, Andrea, maybe not for here and now, but that we look at the processes we did in the different clusters, and then we see if we could see what the difference is between the urban living labs, the different urban living labs, but not here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking that probably design thinking is not something new, or it's probably just another name for things, or a structure for some process steps that they found that are working to create human-centered innovation. So I don't think it's I don't know, the newest thing out there, but yeah, it's a buzzword, and it's a name that brings together some tools and some principles, working principles, and probably it's resembles a lot with other methodologies. Design thinking probably has very good marketing. It was developed in Silicon Valley, and as we know, many of the companies that have started there and the methodologies have a lot of good marketing and some good people behind it. That I think also design thinking as a methodology has been impacted by that. So
unfortunately, I have to leave in about 5 minutes. There's one thing I would like you, maybe you're going there afterwards and then I will see it on the webinar, is there's a whole thing about prototyping. I always use prototyping because I think it's important to have for me, the definition is a first experiment on a possible answer. And I learned that from the U theory, from what's his name? The whole, I don't know, what's his name? No, I can't. There's this thing about it ends also with prototyping. But I was wondering, what is your definition of prototyping?
It's the first solutions, or the first attempt to a solution.
Yeah, okay.
It's different from symbols. It's not something that we describe in words or make a presentation of, but actually something that the user can interact with. And the prototype should have the main characteristics testable. So if there's something about the weight of something, then the prototype has to have the exact weight of your final product, or in a way the users have to interact with it. and say, okay, I don't like this, or I would use it in this situation, or it would be better if it would work like that. But actually they have to be able to test it out, to experience it. And I wanted to ask you to think about or to formulate on an exercise or restructure the challenge that you are working on in these terms. This is how we work also with the project teams. So maybe just write in the chat if you can rephrase the challenge that you are working in your project, to redesign. What are you redesigning as an experience for which customer? I'm going to send you just in the chat. So try to fill in the blank. So we are redesigning the what experience. So for example, the walking experience or the commuting experience. Thank you. Bye. For which kind of user? So specifically for, I don't know, students, or for minorities, which kind of minorities? So please write in the chat. Redesign the experience, the blank experience for user. Can you think about, Andrea, on what is the experience about and not the space? It's about the living experience, the community experience. So try and use experience in your statement.
Is this better?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other challenges? So, for example, when I was at my first design thinking training, we worked on a hypothetical challenge, which was to redesign the drinking water experience for children under 3. So the drinking of water experience. And already, if we think about the experience of the customer, it helps us to empathize with what they are doing and what happens for them. Okay, any other ideas here? Should we move on?
Or maybe you want to share them verbally?
Mm-hmm.
Or the Dutch, Spanish. We have no one from the Italian cluster, but
what kind of experience are you trying to innovate, to redesign, or to design?
also Amelia, if you want to correct me, if you have a different opinion.
I was thinking, we were speaking in the last meeting about the green spaces and how, yeah, the feeling experience in a how to say, in a green area, because in the neighborhood, from what we saw, the green space is not lived. So, and we saw also the need of the people to live, to spend time in the green areas, and this kind of experience to feel in the nature. I don't know how to make people to feel in the nature, even if they are surrounded by blocks and concrete and
Okay, I would say something like the being outside experience.
yes, it could be like some
a redesigning of being outside, probably in the city, and experiencing the nature or some green environment.
yes.
Cool. Okay, redesigning the storytelling experience. So the way that people are telling stories, or what is it about the storytelling experience?
Tell each other maybe stories. Oh, the way the story of the neighborhood is being told. Nice.
Okay, cool. That's a really cool challenge. Okay. So let's go on. When we think about the experience of our user, we can already start to get in their shoes and see from their point of view. But in empathizing, it's really important to really go there and experience it, or at least observe the people, how they are interacting with the environment that we are working on. Yeah, and we use this simple definition, ability to share someone else's feelings or to get into their hearts. And the way that we do this is we have tools for these three types of empathizing categories. So ask and listen is here we use empathic interviews, where we really go and ask for stories and try to find out the stories from the space that we are working on. Watch and observe, then we don't interact with the people, but we just stay there for a period of time that we define before, and just observe how they are interacting, what they are doing. Maybe some people are commuting to work from in that place, and we have to maybe include them in our design or stuff like that. And also try and do. This means that you become one of the beneficiaries, and you go and experience the space, the product, or the service yourself, and see how it feels like, and how it makes you feel, how easy is it to use, and so on. So for ask and listen, we have this kind of interview log that we use, where we just take some notes on the most important challenges that the people are telling us, and we then reflect on what we've learned out of them. We create this kind of profiles with the characteristics of the person, maybe the age, or I don't know, any kind of personality or ethnographic information, and also what is the connection to the topic if they are our beneficiaries. And it's important to ask for stories. Whenever you hear usual, ask for examples. Don't let the conversation stay at a general level or very superficial, and always ask why. Why? We use the 5 why also in this stage. So asking 5 times or even more, why do they do that? And when they give us an answer, then ask again, like you would be a 3 or 4 years old kid, and just be curious, why are people doing it in the way they are doing it? You also have here some ideas on what kind of questions to ask, so neutral questions and open questions. You can also use closed questions, but only to clarify. So when you try to summarize what people are saying, then ask, is this what you meant, or stuff like that. But usually ask open questions. Don't be afraid of the silence. Whenever you put a question and you see that the people are thinking, just shut up and wait for them to think of the answer. Encourage a good story. So if they have some good stories from that space, that's really useful for the project. And yeah, it's really important to talk with one person at a time. Sometimes when we talk to groups, we also have this kind of focus groups or groups of users. Sometimes people don't go deeper into their experience because of the group or the limited time, and we only find maybe superficial information or very few real experiences and examples. It's important to build rapport and tell about the project and what you're looking for, so people don't feel like they're being tested. Try to evoke some stories, some emotions. Make sure that you understood, or ask for why did they feel the way that they felt. And of course, wrap up, thank them for being part of it and the generosity of being part of the project. And then we are again at the convergent kind of thinking, where we have to define and reframe the challenge that we are working on based on what we heard. And this is the way that we do it. In ICG, we work with a lot of post-its, and also online we work with virtual whiteboards and Menti and stuff like that, where we just summarize who we met, what did we find out, and how might we help them with our project. And this is, we call it the DNA of the point of view from the people that we are talking with our users, actually. So some tools that you can also work with, and you can research them, you can find them very easily online. It's the empathy map, the persona description, and the experience flow, where we look at in different ways at the user that we are working with. And we usually do this before going and meeting the users. So this is kind of the desk work that we do before empathizing, before the real thing. When we reframe the challenge, it's important to reframe it as a question. So how might we is a very good start of the question. How does the perfect whatever look like, or just how, like an open question. And if you can get into that question also some restrictions or obstacles that you have that might create or might boost creativity along the way. So how might instead of how might the perfect bus look like, how might we increase the quality of buses without increasing the costs? So this would be a restriction. So now I ask you again to write in the chat if you can reframe the challenge that you are working on, in the projects that you are part of, and the clusters, in this way, as a question. How might we, what you are doing, or how does the perfect whatever look like? How might we create creative neighborhood social spaces, or how would you frame it? Improved authenticity. Okay. Good. In a dense neighborhood is a kind of restriction that can boost our creativity later on. It's important to make it part of the challenge.
I would have added even more like age diverse and
That's also good, yeah. Perfect green area would look like for your neighborhood. Good. Okay. Then we take this kind of questions and we start the brainstorming process. And what I hear from Andrea is that you already have done a lot of ideation, and you already have some things that you wanted to test or already iterated. These are some rules that we use in creativity, and I also want to share with you some tools that we use. Maybe it's helpful. So it's important in creativity to be visual, to encourage wild ideas, to defer judgment. So we have first part where we just generate ideas, and then ideally another day or another part of the project where we actually assess the ideas and see which ideas are good or bad. But yeah, defer judgment when ideas are generated. Go for quantity, as many ideas as possible, one conversation at a time. So we listen to each other because we also build on the ideas of others. When we brainstorm, it's important to ditch the competition feeling. So people should not try to come up with the best idea, but actually to build on each other's thoughts and to create together. And of course, focus on the topic. There's many projects where we start brainstorming and we find ideas for other projects or other initiatives that we are part of. And it's really important to facilitate the process and bring people back to what is actually our focus. Also, yes, and this is like antidote for when the project team starts discussing or evaluating the ideas, and they say, yeah, but we tried this and it didn't work, or yes, but this won't work because of that, and so on. So we try to, from the beginning of the ideation session, say, okay, we're gonna use this general rule for today, yes, and. So somebody comes up with an idea, you can say, yes, that idea, and what I would like to add, or yes, that idea, or and my idea, and so on. So build on each other. Judging comes later. So when we start ideation, the ideation process, the first ideas that come up, the old ideas, we are calling them also idea downloading. So it's important that the ideation takes place in a few phases. So we, for example, use at least three different tools in 3 different times to generate ideas, because the first ones are the ideas that people are coming with from home. As we say, they're just downloading from their mind. Then the second layer of ideas are the logical ideas that come up from that. So we might make some synergies, some connections, and some logical ideas come up. And it takes a lot of time to get to these radical ideas, the good new ideas, things that are really creative and not things that we already thought about before. These are some tools that we use, and I encourage you to use at least 2 or 3 different kind of idea generation tools, because some people are more rational or logical, and they like more some of the tools. So for example, brain writing works very well for people who are very logical, and picture associations work best for people who are more imaginative or work better with images. Brain walking is very good because it keeps us on our feet, on our toes. We have to walk around and get inspired by other people's ideas and different stimuli. And what I want to skip this part. What we also think about, that was the next one. When we start an ideation session, is that it's really easy for people to make this kind of connection, but you have to trigger it. So this is the way that we actually work, our brain works, that you need to clarify the problem. So that's why we start with understanding the problem, redefining the challenge, and then we give our brain some triggers. And the triggers can be the inventive principles. There are a lot of books on that. Some resources that we might have, ideas of others, ideas of our users, pictures, letters, or anything that we can trigger our brain to produce ideas. And I really like this quote that give the human mind two unrelated thoughts and they will feel the need to connect them. So even if you give some random pictures and say, okay, think about your challenge, focus on the topic, let's see what you can, what could be the connection between the two, people will come up with some ideas. So let's try it out. Also in the chat. I'm going to send you a question and please give at least 3 answers, each one of you, at least 3 answers to this question in the chat. What is the connection between a cat and the fridge? There's no good or bad answers. Anything goes. Come on. What's on your mind? On top of your mind. Don't overthink it. Cool. Anything else? What's the connection? Nails. Okay. Rolls, scratches. Thirty seconds. Take it home. Does anybody have fridges that purr like a cat? Usually new generation fridges are more silent, but we can imagine that as well. They make like this kind of purring sound. Okay, so my recommendation for ideation sessions is to start with a fun exercise, usually that helps people get out of their mind and get out of logical solutions and go to a place where anything is possible and where it's fun to generate ideas. I'm going to just show you this picture association. We use this kind of pictures, but you can also use pictures that are more related to your projects, like I don't know, cities or green spaces and so on, but also pictures that have no connection to your topic, and invite people to just look at the picture and come up with an idea. What could be the connection, or what kind of idea does that picture inspire them? I work with a bank of images, and I usually select 10 or 20 images and invite people to think for 1 minute with each picture on what ideas they can develop. Then when we start, when we have a lot of questions, a lot of ideas, and we reframed already the questions in many ways, people are asking, okay, but how do we decide which ideas are best? And what we say is that if you've done this process already in a thorough way, so you thought about it, you have done your desk work, you went out, you discussed and you observed the users, you did some brainstorming and some redefining of the challenge, then your best consultant is your intuition. So the first method that we use when we ask people to decide on the ideas is the positive idea selection, where everyone is allowed to go with the idea that they like the most. And we usually have a room full of Post-its, like you see in my background, from different stages of the brainstorming process. It's important that the project team has a space where they can keep all their ideas and all their prototypes, and then just go and select the best ones that you think will work out. The second, what we do is the quick and dirty rating. So everybody gets many votes, and they can rate their favorite ideas with as many votes as they want. So they can vote for many ideas, or they can vote with many votes on the same idea if they think that this is the best idea. And then we cluster the ideas. Some can work together, and then we create some clusters, and we use parts of the ideas in that cluster to develop the prototype. But in design thinking, we don't spend a lot of analysis on ideas that we are generating. We actually go with our gut feeling, and then we go and create some prototypes, and that's where we actually test a lot. Okay, before we go to prototypes, if there are any questions or any other ideas, how do you do ideation? What have you done so far? How do you select ideas? You can only see 3 faces. So.
Usually build first this step of the ideation, a kind of a value framework of what should be the latest goal to reach. And in that case, besides what Andrea said before, we like to think about changing the world like radically and deeply. And from then, we filter the ideas after we have some kind of selection of ideas. We go back to that framework and see which of these ideas would conquer more effectively or more radically. I mean, we need to decide in which step we want to make this change. And from then we can select which idea is going to be prototyped.
Okay. And do you do this with the whole project team, or who do you involve in?
I work with students mostly, and with teams. Where I usually work, we do that way.
Mhm.
I mean, because there is some what we have found is like in this process of ideation, we sometimes get in love with the ideas, and we forget the real purpose that we want to reach.
We have this principle in prototyping, but I think it's really important also in ideation to don't fall in love with your first idea, and don't fall in love also with your first prototype, because then you have this risk of forgetting about the real issue and the real users, because you really like your idea, and then it's also difficult to receive feedback, or especially negative feedback, when you're in love with your first idea.
And we have done too, like some critical analysis of what would be the benefits of doing any kind of prototypes, the benefit for the specific user that we are designing for the global, and for ourselves as designers or people working with other people. No? So we can see there if we want to make the effort, if it's going to be making us grow in some way.
Thank you for that. Amelia, you wanted to say something?
Yes, but I was thinking about how we decided the solutions, let's say, of the neighborhood where we are working now. So we make like a, let's say, a panel where everybody can put their ideas, and after that we summarize everything, and we saw which was the biggest numbers from one solution, and in order to establish the most needed thing in the neighborhood. But this was not regarding the working team, but it's regarding the cities and the community in the neighborhood.
Yeah, in design thinking, we don't have such structured ways, but we go with our gut, because as I said, if you stay with the process, then you already have a lot of information, and some of it is not very rational. So that's why we also encourage using your intuition on choosing the ideas that you want to develop. And sometimes it's useful to have also some of the sponsors in when you choose the ideas, because they might also see what ideas have you worked on, and give some input on the, I don't know, budgets or the limits of the project, and that might be helpful as well. Yeah, and we have here another point in the chat that giving it to someone else to work it, you can put some distance between you and your idea. That's a good idea. Okay, and now we're going to go to the prototypes, and I want to show you a short video. It's, I think, 5 minutes on the types of prototypes that we can build. And it's a video from IDEO. IDEO is innovation consultancy company that developed a lot of tools in design thinking that we also use, and they show also some real life prototypes from their projects. If you look at, I will send you also their website if you haven't heard of IDEO. They also have a lot of projects, of design thinking projects on social matters, and they describe it really, really nicely how they use design thinking on that. So let me know if you can't hear it. Otherwise, for 5 minutes, I'll let you watch this.
When we say prototype, you might think of concept cars or elaborate models. But what if we told you that a prototype could be anything? A classroom chair built out of sticky notes, an office space that encourages collaboration, the inner workings of a company, anything. Prototyping is really just about painting a picture of what the future might be and getting it into a form that makes it easy to show others so they can provide feedback.
So one of the things I think we do that's really different from the old days, me being an old guy, is what we call a bias towards action. So I think we would spend a lot of time planning. You can imagine smart people sitting around a table, all pontificating about what they think is going to happen or what we ought to do. And I think that's kind of a waste of time. We're not that big on planning in the beginning. We're much more into taking action. So if you jump in, build a prototype, go out and try to understand people. Whatever it is where you're getting real information about what people care about, what's meaningful for them, or looking for latent needs that they have that we don't know about. This is all super high bandwidth information that we can use with respect to coming up with breakthrough ideas. But it requires you to be out there, take some action. One of the important parts of building prototypes is that you're showing them to other people to get their feedback, to get their ideas, for them to tell you what's wrong with it so you can fix it in the next round.
Prototypes should be props that help you tell a story. They bring ideas to life and allow people to imagine a future with your idea in it. But not everyone will understand or like your future. That's okay. David talks about strong feelings loosely held. In other words, you want to feel excited about your prototypes, but don't get too attached to a particular design at this stage. People may critique your idea, and that's totally fine. That's actually the whole point. Additional perspectives can help you push a concept from good to brilliant. Here are a few different kinds of prototypes to give you a sense of how they help us learn. Meet the Aerobee football. It's been selling for decades. We originally wanted to build a football that could stand on its own. Clever, right? But then we tested it with kids and found out that clever doesn't always equal fun. It was lame. So we scrapped that idea and started experimenting with wings. While tossing the football across the studio, these wings helped create a perfect spiral. And eureka, we had it! The Aerobee football. We went for low-level fidelity with early prototyping. We learned with our hands by doing, and we shared it early with kids. It's important to quickly build something so you can learn from mistakes and make it better. Don't worry if it's messy. Messy sometimes leads to the perfect spiral. Here's an example of a digital prototype, which you'll see was super low tech. To give some context, we were making an app with Sesame Street called Monster Maker. We needed to show our idea quickly and inexpensively.
Cue music. So this is possible dance moves for Monster Maker. So music starts, and I'm the player, so I come in and I touch the monster, and he gives me a special dance move. I go and touch again, and he does a different one. And it can go for as long as I want. It has a few signature moves. And when I've had enough and I'm done dancing, I push the back button, and it pauses and the music stops. Monster Maker.
Cool!
That's all I can. Come on, that's all I can.
Now Monster Maker is an award-winning and successful digital toy, which is super fun to play. You can also prototype an experience. Check it out. We were designing seating for an airline and needed to find efficient ways to utilize the space, making sure there was enough room for a great night's sleep. How did we go about it? We built the inside of a plane out of cardboard. Nothing fancy. We just needed to visualize the space we had to work with. Then we took chairs and pretended they were the seats and beds of an airplane. We laid down in the space and on the chairs in different arrangements to understand how close was too close. One of our favorite ideas was the bunk bed. But after quickly prototyping it, we realized that it actually felt kind of creepy. That's why we prototype early and rapidly. If one idea doesn't work, no problem, on to the next. These same methods of mocking up space through roleplay has informed experiences in retail environments, hotels, and the home. Let's reflect back. Prototyping is about bringing something to life. It's about designing the future and scaling beyond physical models. They might be spaces, experiences, or even mobile phones that showcase dancing monsters. What idea of the future do you want to bring to life?
Any thoughts? What kind of prototypes can you use or did you use already in your projects?
I am thinking now, just it came in my mind regarding the seeds and how they've done there. I don't know, maybe just take some big pieces of I don't know how to call it in English, carton.
Cardboard.
Yes, and make some benches, some urban furniture, and put it in the place where we imagine the, I'm speaking about the green area and so on, to see how the people react, or let the people arrange the furniture to understand which is the best design for them. Just an idea.
I wanted to show you again from the video this chair that they made out of sticky notes.
Yes.
So what do you think is the critical function of the chair? What is the innovation? Because we have chairs since a long time ago. What do you think is the innovation for this particular one?
Where to put your stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So the bottom part is the innovation. This is a chair developed by Steelcase. Maybe you've heard of the company. It's a furniture company, and they went through this design thinking process to build chairs for a classroom. And the first one of the first prototypes was actually this kind of paper prototype, where they showed where they would put this space where people actually the pupils were going to put their stuff. And it was a big hit. It's still selling very well, this kind of chair for classrooms. And I want to show you also this picture. So you see here behind the person in the picture, there's a lot of boxes with materials. This is actually how we also go to design thinking workshops, where we prototype with a lot of kind of cheap materials, so cardboard, glue, scissors, stuff like that we can turn really fast into low fidelity prototypes that we can look at, interact with. So yeah, good idea, just to create some furniture out of cardboard and see how people are interacting with it. Would they stop there to sit? Would they, what would they need? Any other ideas or questions? Okay. I'll go a bit further. So what I recommend for the prototyping stage is to pick some ideas, get some materials. So it's fine if there are cheap materials, and a limited amount of time. So time boxing to tell the project team how long do you have to create the prototypes. And that's about it for the creativity, and then they can go and experience with it. Of course, if you have budget also for prototyping, you can have better prototypes, better materials. You can also go to this kind of maker space and have maybe a 3D printer that builds something really fast and so on. But it also works with simple materials. It's important to create prototypes to challenge your assumptions, to get a picture of your idea, to get feedback, And of course, as I said many times already, to uncover the critical functions and to communicate them with others. So low fidelity furniture piece would be out of cardboard, but then when we want to test if people would really sit on it, then maybe we have to build something out of wood or something that is more stable to see if really people would be sitting there and how would be their experience and so on. So from low fidelity to high fidelity prototypes is important. And don't forget, prototypes are not symbols, but they actually are things, artifacts that people can interact with and that they show the most critical function of the idea. So what is your idea? What's different or what's innovative about it? Cardboard, but also out of Lego, what we already also do. Of prototypes, or as you saw with the Monster Maker app, people playing the roles of the characters or the beneficiaries and creating the experience behind that. Okay, some other types of prototypes. So besides the 3D model and the digital mock-up, we can also create a story and create a video, how it would look like. And in the video, you can create a smaller environment and show how it would be in reality if we build that. Or create an experience. Here, the method of Wizard of Oz refers to the smoke screen, smoke screen, I think it's called. If you saw the movie or read the book, where the Wizard of Oz looks like a really big, scary, magical thing, but he's actually in the background and it's just a projection on the smoke. So you can also do that. So behind your prototype, there's somebody who pulls the strings, but the user will only see your idea and how it would develop. Or just create an advertisement, a presentation of your idea as if it were already real and see how people would be attracted to that. So if you would say, okay, so we have in this neighborhood, we have this kind of green space where we do this and that, and get some feedback if people would go and what are their first impressions on that. Testing of prototypes is extremely important. First, we test with the project team. This is the first stage, let's say, where the project team interacts with the prototype and they already get a lot of feedback and a lot of information of how it would be, how it would work. But then we have to also test it with the user. And the feedback from the users here is gold. So don't be afraid to get negative feedback, and also don't present your prototype like it's your best friend or the love of your life. So just present like, look, this is just an idea that we thought of. What do you think about it? And how do you interact with it? Because if you sell it, if you sell your prototype, then when you create the actual product or service and nobody buys it, you will be asking yourself, okay, but the prototype was so loved by my users and now nobody wants it. And this is one of the cases when you sell the prototype, but and people feel like they want to give you positive feedback because you look so nice and in love with it, that you'll be hurt if they give you real feedback. We use this kind of feedback grid where we note what did they like, what could be improved, which questions are still open, and new ideas that come up from the testing. And then we organize the feedback, we prioritize it, and we iterate and improve the prototype that we are working with. And there's a really nice book that I would recommend to you when you do prototypes, is the MOM test. And it's about how to create this kind of tests of your prototype that even if you test it with your mom, she would be able to give you relevant feedback. And it's with the mom because usually mom loves you and likes your ideas and wants to encourage you. And then she gives you a lot of good feedback on your prototype, but in real life, that won't work. I think I also have a 3-minute video to showcase that, maybe very shortly, to see how the mom test works, and then to think for your own projects, how you can create this kind of mom test for your beneficiaries, so without selling the prototype. So this product that you're going to see in the video is an app, a phone app, and it's tested on a real mom because it's cartoon, but it's a real mom because it's mom in this case is part of the target group. So she would be one person to buy this application for the phone.
We're told, don't ask your mum if your business idea is a good one. She'll just say yes. Because she loves you, of course. The mum test is a set of simple rules for crafting good questions that even your mum can't lie to you about. Let's have 2 conversations and see what we can learn. Mum, I've got a business idea. Can I tell you about it? Of course, dear. You like your iPad, right? Do you use it a lot? Yes. OK. So would you ever buy an app which was like a cookbook for your iPad? And it only cost £20. That's cheaper than your hardbacks on the shelf. Well, and you can share recipes with your friends. And there's an iPhone app which is your shopping list. And videos of that celebrity chef you love. Yes, dear. That sounds amazing. £20 is fine. Will it have pictures of the recipes? Yes, definitely. Thanks, Mum. I'm going to quit my job and put all my savings into my new startup. Won't you have some lasagna?
Okay. Any ideas what went wrong with this interview? So this is the bad side of the mom test, bad interview. What you shouldn't do.
She didn't ask really. She was telling her the finished thing about what she thinks about her, her needs, her needs.
Yeah. So she was selling. It was like this app already exists, and it has this chef from TV and stuff like that, and then you have to buy it, and it's also very expensive. But she says it's very cheap. It's only £20. Like it's selling, but then when you do it, actually it doesn't work. So let's see the improved mom test.
That conversation led us down the garden path. The mum test is about talking to your customers about their life, not your idea. It's about discussing specifics in the past instead of generics or opinions about the future. It's about talking less and listening more. Let's do it again right this time. Hey, Mum, how's the new iPad? Oh, I love it. I use it every day. What do you usually do on it? Oh, you know, read the news, play Sudoku, catch up with my friends. What's the last thing you did on it? Well, Dad and I are off on holiday. I was looking where to stay. Did you use an app for that? No, I just used Google. What app should I use? How did you find out about the other apps you have? The Sunday paper has a section on the apps of the week. Makes sense. By the way, I saw a couple of new cookbooks on the shelf. Where did those come from? Oh, they're one of those things you just end up getting at Christmas. I think Doreen gave me that one. Haven't even opened it. As if I need another lasagna recipe at my age. Time to refine my idea. We discovered many insights in that conversation to help us adjust our idea. It just goes to show, if you can get useful business information from Mum, you can get it from anyone.
So in the mom test, it's really important to talk about their lives and what they are doing, and not to showcase your idea and your prototype. Just and this also uses empathy. So in testing your ideas, also empathy is an important part of it. Any questions? Okay. So when we ask for really good feedback, then we have to cluster it and see what feedback is good for our idea, or if we have to redefine it or refine the idea or the prototype, and create more prototypes that we can test with the users that showcase our critical innovation that we are bringing. And yeah, this is the last part of design thinking. But as I said, it's not a linear process. It actually goes in iteration. So it's very normal that you will go back after testing and receiving some feedback. You may be going back to ideation and look for some other ideas, or you realize that the direction that you were going through is not the right one. So you go back even further back, and you try to empathize with more users. You try to find out, okay, what are they actually doing in our space? What do they actually need in their life that we can improve? Or you just go back to the prototyping and refine the prototype, and maybe create the high fidelity one that is more expensive, and go and test it with the users. The iteration part of design thinking is really important, as are the 6 steps. Some success factors that we use in projects is to have some rooms where we can move around, and also where we can keep our ideas. So it's ideally we have, we call it also war room, where people just go back in and out when they create ideas. They leave them there on the walls. When they create prototypes, they leave the early prototypes in the room, and they can go back and look at it and get some inspiration. They meet there frequently with the team to discuss the next steps and so on. It's also important to have an eclectic team with different kind of backgrounds, with different personalities and knowledge. It's important also to visualize what you are working on. So creating it out of cardboard or pictures or anything is pictures of the beneficiaries also is really important to just have them in your mind and in your heart when you design a new service or product for them. Storytelling is important as a skill for when you have the product at the end, and also when you are getting the stories from the people that you're talking to. And the facilitation, the time boxing, and the methods are important in design thinking to really trigger some radical ideas, to build things that can be tested, and to listen, ask and listen, active listening. And as I said at the beginning, design thinking is not only a methodology. We use it for the process and the tools that it gives us, and also it's a mindset. You'll see that when you start working with design thinking for work projects, you will start thinking in this way also for personal things. Like when you buy a gift to someone, you won't fall in love with your first idea or buy something that you would like, but actually you will empathize more and develop some skills that will help you also in your personal life to be more creative. And usually in projects and in companies where we do this kind of projects, we create a culture where people become more creative and more open to feedback and to building things faster. And faster and more radical ideas that they're willing to develop. Yeah, that's about it. And as I said, I also researched a little bit what are some urban interventions where they use design thinking. And here maybe you know some of them. For me, it was the first time when I researched this topic. But maybe if you are curious, there are a lot of websites where you can find some inspiration of how they use design thinking, what kind of users they interviewed, or what kind of prototypes they built in this kind of interventions for urban spaces. Do you know any of these projects or other projects that were built using design thinking?
I never heard about the project you shown us, but yes, I wanted at the beginning, I wanted to ask you how your job can be applied when we work with communities, with urban innovation projects, and how we can adapt the framework to our type of projects. But regarding of on the design thinking, the idea of temporary uses, it's very close from my point of view with the prototyping and trying to do something to see, like in urban regeneration projects, a lot of time we are speaking, the most of the time we are speaking about places that doesn't work properly anymore and they need another function. Maybe if we are doing a big project without testing it, it can fail, and it's about a big budget, you know, it's not like small thing. And that's why temporary uses of some spaces can be a type of prototype. I don't know how to call it, but it's
like
quite
a fidelity prototype, actually, because
yes, to see if it works or not. Because in urban regeneration projects, we need time to evaluate if it's working or not, and that's why using temporary urban furniture or temporary activities, we can see if it works or not, it's a good idea or it's a bad one, the people are using it or not, and so on.
Yeah, I think or what I would recommend is to use some parts of design thinking if you find it useful. Of course, the ideal way is to go with the entire project and develop step by step the solutions. But if you can use just the prototyping bits, that's also fine. And start with cheaper materials, start with something that you can just showcase your idea, and then if you get some feedback and you iterate the prototype, then build it with more expensive ones or really put it in place, because also sometimes the idea is really good but it's implemented in the wrong space or in the wrong location.
Yes,
or it's not communicated well enough and people don't know about it, so it's also important to test out these features of where it is and how it works and how accessible it is.
And also, I was thinking in my mind regarding the design thinking and how this is applied in our field. At the beginning, you said that design thinking is not traditional, it's more doing. And this is a bit, I don't know, we are working with public admin in the field. You have for a lot of time to work with public administrations that are not used with, let's just do, we need a feasibility study, we need some research, we need a lot of things like a traditional research before and after we apply. And here it's a bit, it's a change of mindset of the public administration, but it's also there are like laws and legal stuff that legal things that we cannot go off, we cannot breach them, you know, we have to respect all the steps. And it's a bit it's not it's working, but we have to just take some pieces in order to can apply it on I think so, because it's, you said about traditional and like just do things, and it's a bit contradicting them. I think so.
I think I'm getting your point, and for sure it's a different mindset than what we have. And usually our sponsors ask us from the beginning, when they are giving us some money, how are we going to spend it, and what are the what success are we looking for, and some proof that it can work. And then when we do the actual innovation, we have to risk a lot and to be creative, really creative, to make a radical change. So I get that, and it can be also part of the definition of the challenge to also include this restriction, that we need a solution where we can also showcase something before, and we can make some research on how others have done it, and then start from that to show what we want to do differently or what is similar to that. But yeah, I think it's an important point that you're making. Okay. I'm going to send you also another link that I'm not going to share because we don't have time anymore, but it's also a way to do the interviews where you test the prototypes in 5 acts, where also you don't influence the user so much. So you just look how they are using your product or your idea. So it's also a structured way to do it, to empathize at the end of the process. Okay, so I think we are at the end of this session. If you have any other questions or ideas, I would be happy to stay in touch. And I'm going to write my email also here. Okay, so let's be in touch. Write to me, ask some questions, or I can also share with you some of the tools that I have, that I use, or if you want some more details about some of them, you can also write to me. I'm really happy to support you further if you need it and if you find it useful. And thank you very much.
Maybe as a collective exercise, we can also collect them, because also sharing questions sometimes helps and makes it more relatable. And then maybe we can do a more, let's say, a collective type of approach to this keeping in touch. And I also wanted to thank you, Ale, for the time and the knowledge and the patience. And we definitely need your expertise more, so we are going to stay in touch. Also, thank you everyone for joining, and I'm also going to stop the recording.
Eureka!
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 Eureka.
Eureka.
Eureka. Eureka.